November 18th, 2025. Big week, lots of stuff happening. Pluto goes into Aquarius to stay, and the sun goes into Sagittarius to stay for a while. You know what? We're going to start at the end of the week and we're going to work our way backwards. We'll talk about the Pluto and Aquarius thing last. First, we're going to talk about something that's happening next week. There's so much foresight over here. Next week on Monday, Mercury stations to go retrograde. We'll talk more about that next week. I'll give you some specifics of what's likely to be going on. But the important thing to know is that we're already deep in the shadow of the retrograde, and most typically, the mercurial mishaps multiply right around the station. So you want to be very careful Friday, Saturday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, especially. You're liable to get some big dramatic things happening. I gotta say Sunday into next Monday. I mean, you'll already be watching next week's forecast by the time any of this happens. But, a heads up to those of you who may miss it or something like that. And with Mercury stationing to go retrograde, you might miss it. Let's talk about the moon this week. Okay, that's because we have a few aspects going on, but I think it's the moon that's going to sort of show us the way. We're coming off of the Taurus full moon on Friday, the 15th. And as we begin this week, the moon is going to go into Cancer. And so we start the week with that Cancerian vibe. The feel of this is very much one of protectiveness and caution. However, maybe a drop less so now than in the past, because the moon is not going to oppose Pluto. And for years, there have been some exceptions since the spring of 23, but for years, whenever the moon, since 2008, whenever the moon goes into Cancer, at some point in time, it has connected with Pluto. It's opposed Pluto. And that really brings up the protective side of the Cancer moon. Pluto will still be in Capricorn when the moon enters Cancer, but he's going to leave it before the moon has a chance to oppose. That's kind of interesting. That is kind of interesting. There should be a little bit less protective vibe. Yeah. Maybe this month, but next month for sure it'll be different, right? So maybe for this month we still have a little bit of protectiveness, but it's going to be definitely much less acute than it has been in recent memory. It is, of course, moon in Cancer. It's a fairly conservative, work-oriented start to the week. Then on Wednesday, the moon will go into Leo. And now the first thing that the moon is going to do when it goes into Leo is oppose Pluto. And until 2043, and really till 2044, we're going to be feeling the Leo moon in opposition to Pluto. And in this case, and it goes right in, and the first thing it does right away just enters Leo, and here comes Pluto, opposite in Aquarius. Now we'll have to see how this plays out. We'll have to see what it feels like, right? We don't really know. Moon in Leo, dramatic, fun-loving, heart-centered, let's say, generally a sunny kind of presence, and also very individualistic. Pluto in Aquarius, very much about the collective, very much about common ideals. To a certain extent, very much just about the masses and what everyone has to say about things, in a general kind of way. And so the Leo moon says, what about me? And Pluto in Aquarius says, no, it's all about us. So that's the first thing that the moon gets as time goes on. It's going to happen later and later in Leo, but this month, next month, the month after that, first thing the moon does is oppose Pluto. I'm here, let's have some fun. We have to talk about this. We have to see if it passes approval. It's going to play out in a bazillion ways. That's a little bit of the flavor of the vibe of the moon in Leo. Still in all, the moon gets past the opposition to Pluto. And I would say this week, while we still have a lot of energy in the moon, it's still kind of full. It's It's waning, but it's in its waning gibbous phase. It's not gone. I would say that midweek, Wednesday, Thursday, this is your opportunity to get out and have a little bit of midweek fun, whatever that is for you, or stay in and have midweek fun. I don't know. It's up to you. But it certainly suggests that the middle of the week is a good time. Moon in Leo, Sun will be getting into Sagittarius, and generally not a bad vibe as we head towards the weekend on Friday, just in time for the just in time for the weekend. The moon goes into Virgo, and it's waning a little bit further in. Now we're looking at like the last quarter moon, and here the sense is one of wrapping things up. It's a more inward going energy, more concerned with health, well-being. If you're having drinks and wings on Wednesday, by Friday or Saturday, it might be time for a little bit of I'm not going to say kale or tofu, but you get the idea. You can be a little bit more reserved with things. I don't know. I don't know. Whatever you think is right. It's a nice time of year. And that sort of describes the weekend. Okay. Now, on the 21st, this is Thursday, the sun goes into Sagittarius and leaves Scorpio. This is a significant transition in the course of the year. I'm going to be very northern hemisphere centric with this, which I know those of you in Australia will have to I'll just go along with it. It doesn't really matter. Um, in the cycle of the year, Scorpio season is the tough one. And this does not reflect on people who are born under the sign of Scorpio, have Scorpio rising, Scorpio moons. Well, maybe some of them, not all. But what we get is the end of the years. And I know that, okay, the peak of the solar year is the Cancer solstice back in June. And then, we still have strong solar. I mean, Leo is the sun's sign. And then when the gets into Virgo, we start to feel the light diminishing. It's that time to go inward, time to get back to work on things and so on. It's the sign of the harvest. It's a more work-oriented time. And we feel the light waning until we get to the equinox in Libra. Things start to pull in even more. Now the sun is below the horizon most of the day. But what happens in Scorpio season is pretty significant because we see this is the time when the leaves come off the trees. This is the time of actually experiencing within the solar cycle. If you think of the solar cycle as the cycle of birth and death and rebirth, Scorpio is the time of death, right? There's been a decrease in the light that's already happening. It's going to get darker. It's not the darkest sign in terms of the solar cycle. It's going to get darker, but we actually see the leaves coming off the trees, right? The death of what began in the springtime is very apparent. The plants dry up. My garden is all dried up. There's a few hot peppers still hanging onto the branches and so on. The annuals that you planted hit a frost or some other thing. It just gets too cold. They don't really thrive anymore. Perennials really go about their business too. They kind of sink into the ground. Right. What started in the spring with all of this energy of growth in Taurus season is now dying. And we feel that in Scorpio season. When we get to Sagittarius, indeed, we have not turned the corner. That happens at the Capricorn solstice in December. The days are still getting shorter. The light is still withdrawing. But the death is in the past. The death is in the past. And now it's sort of like Sagittarius is like the afterlife. It's the bardo, right? The old year is gone. We have not yet begun the new year. We're sort of hanging out in this space of, it's not quite, I was going to say, I'm not even going to say the word that I was going to say, but we are in this time where we have to let go of the old year, and we're waiting. In a sense, we're waiting for the turnaround, we're waiting for the time, and it's still far enough out there, and we may be taking stock of the year that's just passed, that is passing, as if we a calendar year, the cycle of growth and so on. We're taking stock of it. The light withdraws, but we make up for it because we bring our own light. We have all of our different festivals of light, right? We have the Christmas lights, and we have Hanukkah, we have Kwanzaa, we have all these festivals of light right at the darker times of the year. We'll bring our own. If it's We're going to bring our own light. And the the feel, it's a fire sign. Sagittarius is a fire sign. It's upbeat, it's outgoing, and it is kind of like a celebration. It's this movement out of the organic cycle and into a different cycle that's not so organic. It's about what we create. And like in the US, it's largely a matter of what we create economically, but it's also what we create spiritually. It's what we create meaningfully for ourselves. That's what we have. We have what we've created for ourselves. And that's what we do in Sagittarius season. We'll be in Sagittarius season for a while, so we'll get back to that as we go along over the next few weeks. And then we get to the fact that Pluto is leaving Capricorn for Aquarius. And there's a nice video. I'll see if I can put the link on at the bottom. I did a video last spring on Pluto and Aquarius, and we'll give you something for each sign and so on. But a quick little recap of all the things with Pluto and Aquarius. It is the power to the people vibe. And the people, the masses, the ideals, it's different. Depends who you talk to, depends where you are. It is everything that is power to the people. you know um it resonates very strongly. Pluto is going to be for a while at the very same degree of Aquarius where Jupiter and Saturn had their conjunction in 2020. And it's a time of it's a time when people are going to be tuning into ideals, when there's going to be, you know no matter what anybody says about the age of Aquarius. If you heard the song from Hair, it's going to be a time when people are going to be very tuned into ideals, which is nice. But again, people have different ideals, and there we have the clashes of ideals, and sometimes perhaps not viewed with great compassion when people have different ideals than you. That's part of what's going on. Um, but for our purposes, let's think about it this way, make it a little bit more personal to you. Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008, and things that began around that time, and I would give 2007 to 2009 or 10 or so, things that began around that time. As Pluto leaves Capricorn and goes into Aquarius, the whole tone that created those things, the whole vibe that was present when they came into being, is over. And a lot of things that began in 2008, 2009 are going to be ending. And I think, to tell you the truth, we can already see that. We could see that in the socio-political landscape for certain. I've been talking about that for the last couple of weeks. Welcome, new subscribers. But we've been talking about that for a few weeks now. But, in our personal lives as well, things that started at that point in time will now be sort of diminishing, passing away, leaving, and new things will come up. And so it depends on, excuse me, it depends where Capricorn is in your chart. It depends where Aquarius is in your chart. That's a little bit of a hint by the house position. Depends what planets you have in there. Who's Pluto coming to visit and who's Pluto leaving. Those of you who have stuff in Capricorn, as Pluto gets farther down the block, he's no longer in front of the house anymore. That's going to feel good. But you can look for a little hint of things that began when Pluto entered Capricorn by the house position. And what's going to start was going to be where Aquarius is in house position for each of us individually. But you don't necessarily need to even have that astrological information at your fingertips. What you can do is just look back to things that began right around 2008, 2009, late in the first decade of the century, and follow their course in your life. When did they kind of reach their peak? They probably have already reached their peak. And how did they trail off? The pandemic, of course. The pandemic helped things trail off rapidly for many of us. But not everything. And a lot of things that began in 2008 have been transformed in recent years. And a lot of things have ended. A lot of things have sort of gone away. And certainly a lot of people have gone away, especially in recent weeks. I felt that a lot of folks died during eclipse. People die all the time. Right? Can't make the case for that. People die all the time. We know that. And yet, somehow or another, in our personal lives and in the collective, there was a little spike right around eclipse season. And in reflection, I think now it was Pluto turning direct on October 10th, and then him going through the very, very last degree of Capricorn and getting out of the sign that really signaled, perhaps together with the eclipses, a lot of things ending and passing, and a lot of people passing as well. And so we'll get a new, not a new crop of people, not a new crop of, but a new crop of circumstances coming up for us. Keep an eye on Tuesday, the 19th, when Pluto leaves Capricorn and goes into Aquarius. It will give us some idea of the kinds of themes that we'll be dealing with. In truth, we've already had the introduction to those themes already, but we will see a little bit more, and it's good to keep your eye on it. Okay, there you go. One more thing. A couple of people asked in the comments if I do personal astrology readings, or as I like to call them, consultations, because it's not just like a reading. That's another story. And the answer is, of course I do. Of course I do. You don't think YouTube keeps me in black sweatshirts, do you? So I do. And if you're interested, I do put the website address on the bottom of every video. Or you can hit the integral astrology button and go to the channel, and my website is listed there. But it's armanddiaz.com. Come on, it's not hard. But yes, I certainly do. I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, I just wanted to say, it's not a plug. It's not a plug. I'm just answering questions. By the way, if you have any questions, those of you that have watched this far, if you have any questions about astrology, the astrology of the week, or even something just kind of general, not about your chart, but if we'll handle that personally. But if you have some general question about astrology, feel free to put it in the comments and I will answer it at the end of the videos as they come in. Just something to do. We got something to do. Pluto's going into Aquarius. We're going to have to keep ourselves busy somehow.